is the Dave Chappelle The Closer show, which you guys recommended I watch, and I'm glad I did. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was fucking fantastic. He had let me pull up. He had like a lot of like good. I wrote down some quotes he had that really like that stood out. And then he had that story at the end of it with the girl Daphne or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I enjoyed the special. It was nice, short, and you know what I'm saying, to the point. What did you guys think?
Yeah, man, I don't want to go on a monologue on this shit, but overall, I agree. I agree with the message, um, because it is it is something. It's another one of those double standards, um, and it does feel like you can't say certain things about a certain group of people, um,
Even if it's true.
regardless of whether it's true or not. You can't say it and, without receiving some like. Which is weird because we're talking about like we don't know the actual numbers of people that are going through this transition or whatever, because we're not I think we need to stop lumping the entire alphabet community, and I don't even know if that's politically correct, but the LGBT, that community, because I think there's a difference in that I guess have become used to, or we know, a gay, lesbian, or bisexual person, whether they're friends of ours in our family, at our jobs. Like, it's part of the culture, and it's been like we're okay with it, because it's been 30 years of slowly coming into normalcy. But I think that needs to be separated, because I think the biggest thing that's going against them is the other part of the community, the people that are going through some kind of transition. And I don't know what percentage of the population that is, but it's interesting that it's such a small population, but they're so vocal about things that it's made media, or it's brought to light. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It just I don't even know what we're necessarily arguing about, outside of, guys, you aren't above the same level of criticism that everyone else is not. And there's some things that we do need to discuss, regarding just overall fairness, because just because you feel that you don't, like, some of the things that you're asking for is not fairness. It's being asked to be treated like
Special or above.
a special above. Yeah, yeah, like, it's I understand the freedoms of marriage, equality, not being discriminated against when trying to get jobs, or just society or whatever. But it's the whole being included into every little thing, when we haven't had that discussion of how to include. And sports is the easiest one to come up with, or whatever, where it's
Big
like,
facts, big facts.
it it's a crude, it's just it's a hard on against humanity. It's a hate against their group, just because you don't allow, someone who's been a guy for 20 years to compete in a woman's sport, or compete with other women and such. And it's just one of those things that or or restrooms, or whatever. And most new restaurants and new places have unisex, bathrooms, so that kind of curbs a lot of it. But it's just one of those things that we haven't really discussed as a whole, and it's just everything just is just trying to be forced right now. Yeah, I think that's where he's saying is, like, he's not punching down, right? He's like, I'm not aiming down, I'm not punching down, I'm not it, I don't know, man. I agree with, overall, with what he said, because it is a little frustrating, because there is the other group of people too that kind of lump themselves into that struggle, when they aren't actually going through that transition struggle. I don't know what else to call it, but they're not going through those same emotional or physical, feelings, but they just want to be part of the struggle. And then I think the biggest thing that irks Chappelle, and this is just my opinion based off the last couple specials, is trying to associate this kind of struggle with the struggle minorities have had,
Mm,
specifically black people,
mm,
because you're talking hundreds of years of, I mean, some of the most vile things you can imagine, that none of that's happening to this community. but to act like that struggle is
The same
of
or
equivalence,
just as much.
yeah, it's. I think that's the source of his frustration. Over, yeah, cut out all the other bullshit I said. That's the source of his frustration, and I agree, and that would be the source of my frustration as well. It's like, bro, these are two different things that we're talking
There's
about.
levels to this basically.
There's levels.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely understand. You know what I'm saying? You were, yeah, everything you just said was straight facts in my opinion. But
I'll
yeah,
just say his opinions. I'll say it as opinions. The only
nah,
thing
I
I
mean,
think is a fact is just that last bit where the
no,
struggle is not the same.
yeah,
It
but I
just
think,
isn't.
but it's like exactly like you said, and what Chappelle was referring to. They feel like it is, though, and it's like, oh, if you don't really understand how actually different it actually is.
Yeah. And man, and the fact that I'm not surprised that Netflix backed Chappelle. I'm really not. And I think a lot of that goes to two things. One, or sorry, three things. One, it's money, Chappelle's money.
Right.
Two, Chappelle has reached a tier so high that he's one of the
We're gonna
few
get into that.
handful of people that can do this.
Right. Right.
And then
Exactly.
three, this group, this community, and like I said, I do think he and Netflix or whatever. This is just an assumption, but I do think they're separating gays, lesbians, and bisexuals from the rest of the community. And the rest of the community is so small that someone of this stature can actually say shit like this. And for the most part, most people, media projects things a certain way, but for the most part, people are like, yeah, I agree with them, or yeah, I don't really agree with them on this one, type shit.
Hmm.
Um, then I think it's those three things that Netflix was like, ah, fuck y'all. And plus Squid Game just going nuts. They're like, yo, we're caking hard right now, bro. Fuck trans.
All right, Peso. Initial thoughts.
So just looking at it as a comedy special,
Right.
um, and comparing it because he's done a whole series on Netflix. If I'm comparing it to the other ones he's done, I probably wouldn't put it at the top because, for me, a really good comedy set is one that has a lot of variety, right? So
Hmm.
people will be talking about what's happening in the world today, from the politics to the sports to, this
The
society.
music. Yeah.
So I like when it has that kind of balance. And in this particular one, it's got he's really focused on one section, and it's pretty much his because his last one kind of touched on this subject, quite a bit, and then the community came back at him, and this is just his response to them for the most, like 90% of it.
Right.
So because of that, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did some of his other ones because the other ones he was throwing in all other different kind of topics. And then because it was a response to these people, it was like he was being very. It was like I felt like someone who was doing like a lecture, or like a debate. It felt like a funny debate, where he's coming up with what he feels are the facts, throwing in a joke here and there, but it was mostly really serious. I mean, I was chuckling here and there, but I was not like in tears like I have been in some of his old ones. So if I'm looking at it purely on this, entertainment as a comedy stand up, mm, I mean, it was solid because he's the goat. Everything he does is solid, but I wouldn't put it as one of his best ones. And I'm using the laugh out loud, tears, laughter as my way of ranking. But in terms of what he's tried to do, it might be the only comedy special I've seen where a comedian goes at a community this hard, just without like, I don't care. I'm just gonna go at him. I don't care if it has repercussions because I'm the goat. I've made enough money. If this is the last show I ever make, who cares? It's not gonna affect me. So it's gonna be remembered because of that. But I think he did a really good job. He explained really clearly in my eyes why he feels the way he does and why he said the things he said.
Okay.
And to a certain extent, like, it's comedy, man. Like, people are gonna get made fun of. Like, fat people get made fun of. People get aren't happy about that. They're like, people shouldn't say fat jokes because it results in, a lot of bad things happening. Like there's repercussions and a domino effect. So we shouldn't make fun of fat people. But this is comedy, man. You make fun of people. It is what it is. So if you are part of a community that is made fun of in stand-up comedy, you kind of have to, to a certain point, yeah, you have to take a little bit of a beating, man. Like, doesn't matter if it's Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, Bill Burr, um, or any of these other guys. They all hit different communities, make fun of them. They don't have anything personal against most of these people. It's just it's what's in the news. It's what's gonna make people laugh. It's comedy. So when I hear like, oh, people want to boycott Chappelle or Netflix, or they want to do a walkout, I'm like, you guys need to sit down. Because to Chappelle's point, there's other struggles that have been through way more and deserve at least equal amount of time and effort as your struggle. So, and someone just needs to sit you guys down and let you know, like, there's levels, okay? And you guys are not at that level. So just calm down. And even the person who quit from Netflix, is, she's white. I think she's been writing a black show. So already you're gonna be like, why are you making all this noise when you're white and you're writing black TV shows, right? You,
Right.
you, you, and I think her show got canceled. So you're just like, so you're not even that good. So I don't think Netflix, Deeper already said, I don't think Netflix is losing any sleep because this isn't like their A1 top writer that's leaving. This is, someone whose show got canceled. It was a white person writing a black show, but probably the kind of publicity they don't even want.
Hmm.
So I think they need to sit down. They need to sit down and just take it on the chin, just like every other community that gets made fun of. In this special, he made fun of Jews as well, a couple
Exactly.
times. I haven't heard, and Jews. I'm sorry that there's a lot of people, Jewish people who are in the entertainment industry. They would have easily been the loudest if him making fun of them was over the top. But I haven't heard too much about that side of the jokes he was making. So it's just how it is, man. You're a community, you're a minority. People are gonna make fun of you. It's gonna happen. You might not like it, but I think it was an overreaction. I think Chappelle handled himself well, covered all the points. He was funny, just not his funniest work.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Y'all both said a lot there, so mine won't be as long. But I agree with like what both the premise both y'all were saying. I I think in a combination of what you guys said, a quote that he said that kind of symbolizes what the special is supposed to stand for is he's not punching down and he's not punching up. He's punching straight at you, and that's what he's trying to say is true equality. Because all the people who are talking about, oh, we're outraged this, we're outraged that. Guess what? Even and Fahzo, you just mentioned something about the minorities being, the joke of every comedian. Guess what? So is the majority. Do you know how many white people jokes they make about like incest and all that kind of stuff? So it's literally everybody and anybody can and will be made into a joke. First of all, and this is just something for that needs this is about any kind of content you consume. If you don't like what you see, stop watching it. You can't go to Fox News and complain that they're saying all this like wild shit and complain about it. No, if you don't like that shit, there are other news outlets you can go watch like CNN or any of the same thing with comedians. If you don't like Dave Chappelle, no one is forcing you to watch him. You can go watch something else. Me and Phil went to the comedy club a little while back, and they made a fat joke about Lizzo, and it's just like I saw like a lot of the people in the crowds were like, like they were really like they gasped, they were really shocked. It's like, what do you think all of a sudden people who are like big get special privileges and rights? No, no, you do not get treated better for being part of a smaller demographic. That's not how it works. And again, to go back to harp on the point Phil was saying earlier, this is this and what he was saying about how Dave Chappelle's gripe was. You can't compare to what slavery was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I honestly, genuinely think there are people right now who think that they are on the level of oppression of slavery. And it's just like, again, there's levels to this. It's not the same. And so I agree. I personally agree with every single thing he said. And one thing I do like about it is he's showing how self-aware he is too. Because like Phil said, and I think Fahzo you said too, he's one of the only people who can do this. There are certain people, for instance, like if I'm a YouTuber, if you guys got companies you work for or anything like that, there are rules you have to abide by. You know what I'm saying? There are rules you have to abide by. I can't break the term of service. You guys signed the contract. I'm sure you guys can't break the contract. So unless you work for yourself and you don't need a dime from anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like Eminem, like Dave Chappelle, I'm sure LeBron's in that category. All these people, Rich Paul. There are a certain demographic of people who literally do not need anything from any company. And what comes with that is freedom, true freedom of speech, because you can say anything. There's no such thing as cancel for those type of people. You can't cancel them, because what happens typically is, like, if I said something, like if I was big on YouTube and I said something that demeaned, a demographic, if I demeaned African Americans or women or anything like that, I can get canceled because I'm financially reliant upon a platform to provide my source of income, right? But they're not. They have complete independence when it comes to income, to their income. So when they say cancel, what they mean is like, oh, people will financially try to, stop backing you and all that kind of stuff. But when you don't need a dime from the fans and from the companies, you're invincible. Quite literally, from cancelization, you're literally invincible. And Dave Chappelle is like that. And so, and I think that's what got people even more butthurt, because they knew that. They knew, like, hey, and the thing, he even said, like, this is the last time I'm gonna address it. I also find it funny how the story about the friend Daphne he befriended, he gave her so many good opportunities. They became friends. He let her open for her and all that kind of stuff. Yet she committed suicide because of the communities that claimed to be fighting and advocating for those people's rights ended up making her commit suicide. So, you know what I'm saying? There's some incongruencies here, obviously. And then
Yeah.
that was my, like, short version of the thing. And then, oh, one last thing though about, so you mentioned something about I think there's two different groups. There was a group of people planning a walk. Actually, you guys mentioned something about a lady getting fired.
Yeah, she was the one trying to organize things.
She
Okay,
quit.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember the race when I was reading the article, but I read an article that said a pregnant mother was
She
fired
was a
from.
black lady.
Okay, so okay, pregnant black
Yeah.
mother who has a 3-year-old daughter or something like that got fired for planning the walkout. But it wasn't just because of the walkout, because I read somewhere that she leaked some kind of confidential information about Netflix somewhere. So they fired her because of that. But guess what? They also had grounds to fire her on planning the walkout. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about contracts, about all this different type of stuff. In the NFL, and this is just a random example, if you don't, like, do your job, they can cut you immediately. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like that with any company. You can be fired for any reason immediately. And I think in most states you don't even have to have a good reason. You can fire just to fire. Again, company policy doesn't mean you agree with it, but you accepted it. If you don't accept it, if you don't agree with their policy, then you can't work for them. You can't make an entire company shift just based off your view. Because then what if other people on the company have different views? Then what? But I am surprised. No, I can't say I'm too surprised that they backed Chappelle Netflix, because typically when people start, like, getting rowdy like this, and people immediately, like, start taking down videos, start offering apologies and stuff like that. It's like, no, if you're a marginalized community, if you feel like that, there are ways to go about it without
Yeah.
being a victim of, and on top of that, This is comedy. If this was a news reporter, if this was, a YouTuber, if this was somebody else, okay, we can start to have a discussion. This was a fucking comedian. This was a comedian, meaning like, again, me and Phil went to a show even before the last one we went to. I think his name, yeah, it was Godfrey. This dude made fun of almost every single race, right? Every single race. You don't see anybody though going like, oh, you made fun of like this small demographic of Africans, blah blah. No one says that. It's comedy. First of all, if you're that sensitive, you probably shouldn't be watching comedy in the first place. Second of all, if you don't like his version of comedy, don't watch it. No one's forcing you. And that's the thing I don't get. No one's forcing me to watch anything I don't like. So why am I the only time where people should be genuinely upset about something that someone says is if it is demeaning, or if it demeaning, and when I say that, let me be more specific, in terms of like your rights as a human being. If it's like, oh yeah, like something to do with, I know they're pushing for more people to have the right to vote and all this different type of stuff. That's if people are hating on that, that's one thing. Politicians are corrupt and you see them, you can call it out. That's one thing. But for you to be sensitive as fuck to comedians, you literally have to go in there knowing that everything's fair play. They can make a 9/11 joke. They can make literally any type of joke. But if you can't handle that, don't watch. They don't got a PG clean version for you like they do for music. Music, they got explicit and clean. They don't got that for comedy. You take it how it is or don't take it at all.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's not. Well, I guess the equivalent would be a clean comedian or
Yeah, but
someone who doesn't. Yeah,
but that still goes down to choice. You can't make
yeah.
a explicit comedian be clean and vice versa. So yeah, that whole the black mother pregnant lady getting fired. Okay, like you put yourself in a compromising, that kind of compromising position for what? It's not that you can't have those views. It's
Yeah.
it's to go against your company. Are your company not allowed to have those views? Just like you? Just because they're a corporate entity? No, absolutely not. They're allowed to have that view too. Chick-fil-A is against, I believe they're super Christian, which is why they're closed on Sunday, number one. And I don't know, like I'm not entirely sure about this part, but they're very Christian, and a lot of articles have come out of them being anti-gay and all that kind of stuff. That's
Oh
their
yeah,
view.
no, and yeah, and that's the thing. Like, money does talk over everything because they did used to finance
Trump.
gay camps or
Oh,
gay, like, where they
anti.
would try to transition you outside of, be like, you would go there as gay and then hopefully
Okay.
transition out.
Yeah. Okay.
And they did that for a few years, and yeah, they had that little like year of complaints or whatever, but they make so much money, it quieted things down
Immediately.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, from between us, we know some certain people that said, "Oh, I'm not going to Chick-fil-A anymore because
yeah,
they're." Oh, guess what happened? 2 months later, from social justice activist, online justice
bro.
activist, to eating at Chick-fil-A like 2 times a week.
You can't deny it, bro. It's yeah, I think it's just temporary outrage, man.
But that's the thing. Once people see other people outraged, they don't want to become the enemy or the ire of them. So they just kind of go along with them, and be like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just a mob mentality at that point, because you don't want to be the one to stand against the majority, or the people who are, you know what I'm saying. So I don't know that.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
think another reason I agree, especially there's so many options for comedians that you don't have to watch Chappelle. Like, just like music and Spotify, there's so much music I don't listen to because it's not my genre, it's not my thing. Um, but I mean, I remember Bill Burr talking about this shit, well over 10, 15 years ago, where he would just talk about people on, attending a stand up, and they're just laughing their ass off. They're going wild, right? And then he'll bring up some topic, like whatever it may be. It may be effeminate men rollerblading or some bullshit. And all of a sudden, he's, when you do the meet the comedian as you walk out type shit,
Mhm.
buy their CDs,
Mhm.
but like they do, yes, back in the day. They don't do that anymore, but there are people that walk up to him like, yo, it's not cool that you talk about, you know, this particular group of people. I didn't find that part funny or whatever, but he was like, but you found the funny part about the father from South Carolina fucking his cousin and his daughter, like that was funny to you though. Like it's so we pick and choose um what we find funny, because the same level of comedy attributed to another group is not going to be funny just by ourselves. But back in the day, you're just like, okay, I didn't find that funny, but you didn't voice your cancel type opinion and be like, no, I can't fuck with you no more because we don't agree 100%. Where it used to be okay to just be like, yeah, I don't agree with everything you say, but for the most part, we're good. And I found this part funny. I agreed with this part and I didn't with others.
Hmm.
Where, and I think that's the detriment of cancel culture. Where we're quick to
You
talk
can't
up.
have actual conversations of what people
You,
actually think.
you can't, and that's why. And again, it goes back to the whole school thing of like, fam. I mean, like I said, if my daughter lost out on a scholarship to go to college or whatever because some chick beat her in the 200-meter dash at some state tournament or some bullshit like
Who
that.
was biologically a
Um,
man?
bro, yeah, that's what I yeah. Heads would have to roll, bro. It's like, yo, that's not fair.
Okay,
And then you know, bring
but
that.
then, as soon as you say that, you're considered a transphobe because you're supposed to say trans women are women.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the fact that Bruce Jenner became
So,
Woman of the Year, like
so
that's a good. It's a joke, but it's a good point. It's like Kylie, whatever. I forget Kylie Jenner, not Kylie.
one of the genders, I
Whatever
don't know.
whatever he converted into, whatever Bruce Jenner converted into the person. I forget her new name, but the fact that Bruce Jenner converted and 2 years later, you know, that person is now Woman of the Year. It is a pretty good summary of like I guess how we possibly view how a small portion of people possibly view women because no one in their right mind would have been like, yes, this person, you know, that made that transition is Woman of the Year versus the woman who figured out calculations in order to get this next droid landed on Mars successfully. Like
Oh yeah.
it's that kind of shit where it's just like it's he said it as a joke and it is funny, but it's a good topic to bring up and we don't have that discussion anymore. And look, I'm reading through the quotes and I really don't know why they're so mad.
So
Like in our country,
that's
you can shoot and kill. I'm
yeah.
not gonna say it, but you better not hurt a gay person's feelings. Like it's a joke. And granted, he shot that person in self defense, trying to protect him and his daughter at
Right,
Walmart or whatever.
right. But
But
it's just a fact.
you,
It's still the matter of fact.
yeah, like you can joke about that shit. Like you can joke about someone just getting murked in a Walmart.
But you can't
Like
joke
you
about
can joke about that, but you can't talk about a gay person's feelings. And I think where he did mess up, I think in one of the quotes he said gender is a fact or whatever. And I think, I think he meant to say sex, or gender is a
yeah, you're right. You're
construct
right.
based off of
You're right.
society or social norms.
He probably got the mixed up, and he probably wants to say
Yeah.
sex. Yeah, you're right,
But that's the thing. People read something like that and take it as, they'll analyze that where,
bro. He's not
but
perfect.
I'm looking, man, I don't see something that
So yeah,
would warrant
that's why I just wanted to
crazy
go.
cancel
I wanted
culture.
to go through the quotes real quick and just see what y'all thought about certain quotes. You already talked about the Bruce Jenner one, so we'll skip that one. But I know trans people make up words to win an argument. They said
What was
something.
that in context to?
They said something. I'm not gonna care to remember or learn the abbreviation of it, but they said something about turf, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
again, it's just like transphobic, and it's like it's a lot. I hear a lot of people. I'm not afraid of you. First of all, because that's what phobic actually means. I'm not afraid of you, and I don't degrade you just because I disagree with you. You know what I'm saying? Like people, the lines are starting to get blurred real bad. Okay, he said, Phil already mentioned this, but he said, why is it easy? Oh, this is a good one, actually, I think. Why is it easier for Bruce Jenner to change his gender than it is for Cassius to Clay to change his name?
Uh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's the color of your skin, man.
yeah.
And then obviously Phil already said Caitlyn Jenner was voted Woman of the Year her first year as woman.
Caitlyn Jenner. Why do I keep forgetting that?
When there were many, like he even gave an example. There was many women that probably were a little more deserving. Um, because a simple transition, I don't think trumps what every other female did in that entire year. You know what I mean? Um, and so another example, they have a bunch of these award shows where it's like female of the year, female athlete of the year male athlete of the year. You know, LeBron's won that a couple times, which is why I know. But now do you have to have transgender, LGBTQ plus alphabet uh, athlete of the year? Like, how are we gonna do? And again, this goes into sports and that type of stuff, and there's gonna be no solution. The only solution, because we've we've let cancel culture do its thing and grow and grow and grow like a virus. It's gonna do what it wants to do. So now, like Phil was saying, if he had a daughter and she was competing, yeah, he'd be pissed. But there's literally nothing he can do because most leagues are gonna allow women, because if they don't, they're gonna get canceled with you're being discriminatory, blah blah blah, and so on.
Bro, what's wild is the advisor for the Olympics who's been doing testing for years that couldn't come up with conclusive evidence to be like that woman weightlifter who competed in this Olympics where they're like there was no conclusive evidence that she did not have an advantage. Essentially, she was saying she had an advantage, but we don't have a way to prove that she does not have an advantage. So, but we're gonna let it slide. The fact that they allowed that, but then they allowed old girl or didn't allow old girl to run because of marijuana. And granted, 100% it is her fault. She should not have been smoking
Yeah,
before the Olympics because
that's the
it's
rule.
only every 4 years.
It's always been the rule. The rule's always been that. It hasn't suddenly
Yeah.
changed.
But the fact that
Yeah, no, it's dumb.
one is
Yeah,
allowed and the other is
it's dumb.
it's one of those things that just further proves the point. And one other thing that he didn't bring up, but that the author of the Harry Potter books, is it
Oh yeah,
J.K. Rawlings?
J.K. Rowling.
Rawlings?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, like what she said is something that like something our mothers and even a lot of women say in private but won't
Mm-hmm.
in public, in that when like from her what she said and paraphrasing, when I see a trans woman, and I'm not talking about the ones that I showed you, B, where it's just like it's hard to tell, but
Good
I'm
lord.
talking about the average ones. You see it and it's almost like the example she was like a black person seeing blackface. And not that racism and this is on the same level, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's an impersonation, is I think the exact word she said. It's like I'm seeing a bad impersonation of me. So in the same way that our parents and older generations have that thing about they were super not homophobic, but some super homophobic, but they were very scared of like gay people, very uncomfortable around gay people,
Yeah.
right? It's like they felt something was off. Like these women, there's a lot of women that feel that something is off when someone is doing when they take a look at this, that they just don't want to say in public. Yeah, but when it's like, like women power or whatever, that thought is always in the back of their, and I'm only going off of like, family, and then, my women friends and the discussions I've had with them. There's
Mm-hmm.
always that thought in the head of like, bitch, you really ain't like you really aren't a woman. I know what you're trying to do. I'm gonna respect it, let it be, but at the end of the day, you're really not a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so don't put yourself in the same level as me, man. And dude, I've had this talk with a ton of women, 30s and 40s and 50s that I work with or that I'm always around or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those things that and Eminem had that that bar years ago when he first came out. It's like a lot of the stuff I say is the stuff you say with your friends, but you just to like I just put it in raps or whatever.
Right.
Like it's that same thing that and Chappelle brought up that in a reference to that author, and that's what she was saying. But she made that point because that's how she felt. Now she could have kept quiet, but it's one of those things that we can't have that discussion because we're trying to say yes, they're converting, and yes, they're going to be the same as women. Where that discussion needs to be of yes, they're making the
Accurate.
transition, but at the end of the day, you can't call them women because just bound by the laws of biology, they are
Nature.
not women. Like it's I don't know why we can't have that conversation. It's like, no, you're not a woman, but you're making a transition to become, I don't know what the term is, but it's a transgendered woman or whatever, but you're not biologically a woman. You can't have periods, you can't have kids, you can't like you are chemically not the same. So I think we need to that's where we need to start that discussion. Be like, dude, you're not the same, but it's okay what you're trying to do.
And then some of the last quotes we can go through is, well, I just like this one. He said, "Not blood, that's beet juice."
Oh yeah, hey,
Um,
hey, hey.
and then he said, and apparently they dragged me on Twitter. And he said the trans community. He said, I don't give a fuck. Twitter's not a real place. Like this man, you know this man.
Yeah,
This man does not
he
take
he's
Twitter.
he says that, but at the same time, man, it's become real. You
It
know,
has
like we've made
in
it
it.
real.
No, in a sense, yeah. I definitely get that. And last quote that that's one I wanted to mention. The way he ended it, I thought was really, really dope. He said, "Young lady, I knew your father, and he was a wonderful woman."
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought
Oh, that was a good conclusion. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a good way to end it.
yeah. So final thoughts about being one of the people who can actually has this ability, the people getting fired at Netflix, the people at Netflix deciding to stand their ground, what this means for other comedians and all that kind of stuff. I know, Phil, you were talking about we need to change that where we can start to have a conversation, like a real conversation.
It's gonna take stuff like this before people start having conversations because I think what woke started off as a good thing, and then we just hit the pendulum too hard and it went
Mm.
to the opposite thing. It's just kind of like Me Too.
Yep.
It's a great thing and it's necessary, and then it just went so extreme that we started having these wild accusations of like he looked at me wrong 2 years ago, and that required an investigation, even though nothing happened.
Big
So it's
facts.
like we take one thing and we just go extreme with it. So I guess this is the one thing, and at some point it's going to go so extreme that the woke part will come back to the other side, and people will be like, all right, well, all right, so he does bring up a couple good points. I don't agree with anything, but yeah, why is this? Why is it classified as this, or so I think this is necessary for a conversation to be had 3, 4, 5 years from now. Yeah, yeah, it's necessary, man. But yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen. That pendulum swing.
But I think we're in the current society is just gonna keep swinging back and forth so hard. Like we're trying to get it to stay in the middle, but that's what we're having a problem with.
But dude, nah. This is why I disagree. Well, it's not like other countries, like the Hong Kong protests or whatever. Even though news ain't reporting it, and even though they've been swallowed up, they're still fighting that battle. Whereas here, we're so comfortable, and this goes back to that. Damn those two dudes. The playback.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
The I forgot his name, the Ethiopia. Oh, Agent Zero,
Agent,
where he
yeah.
was like, "We're so comfy in the Western world that
Yeah,
we
exactly.
come up with shit, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So this is gonna be a temporary thing, just similar to the Chick-fil-A thing. And it's like, Chick-fil-A said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep paying money to these churches. Oh, they caught us. All right, we're gonna keep paying them, but in a smarter way to where it can't be captured. We're gonna pay news off, so it's not reported as much anymore." And they kept moving, right? This like we have too many distractions to be focused on one thing long term as a full society. There's always going to be small groups, but there's like a couple years from now, a year from now, these same people that are super woke, they're going to find another topic that's the new hotness to be woke about.
Exactly.
And while this problem still happens, and then what's going to happen is this new a new generation comes in and they're going to start asking questions, and they're going to be like, wait, time out, somebody's already asking these questions. Yeah, no, these are legit questions. It's like the R. Kelly thing. It's like R. Kelly, everybody knew R. Kelly was doing it, but it took a new woke generation that didn't grow up with him before they're like, hey guys, a 35-year-old man hanging around McDonald's picking up 17-year-olds is not okay. And it's going to take some. I think that's what's going to happen. That's my opinion.
Faisal, last thoughts.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm kind of just going along with what he said. It may not have been the funniest special or the best special, but maybe it's one of the more important ones. Because with everything, there should be two sides to the discussion, man. And I feel like some of these things need to be more balanced.
Mm-hmm.
We've been bulldozed, man, by some of these things, and I think he even mentioned Me Too couple, once or twice in his special, and these movements get momentum, and then they sometimes get a little bit out of control. So someone has to check them every now and then, keep them honest, let them know like where they stand in the whole structure of everything, man. So I think it's an important special because it asks people to kind of challenge
Self-reflect.
these movements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, like, is do these people really need to have this much influence? Is that right? Is
Especially.
it fair? Yeah, so it's important. I think that my final thought is that it's an important thing for like
Mm-hmm.
people today to ask themselves, and then for the next movement that's going to come up, same thing. He looked at Me Too and he said Me Too is a poorly run movement.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave some points, so some funny points, but some serious points. So someone needs to ask that question, because even when something happens that and everyone just feels the need to, like you guys said, oh well, let's all not go eat there, or let's not. Someone has to ask the question. Well, hold up, like, does this really make sense?
Right.
So that's why I think that would be the thing I took away from it.